Well, let's head to the U.S. now, where a court of international trade has blocked Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs, stating that the president does not have the authority to impose the levies under the emergency powers law he used to justify it. Now, that ruling comes nearly 2 months after U.S. tariffs triggered a global trade war and turmoil in financial markets. Now, Asian share prices welcomed the news, with stock markets in Japan and South Korea rising by over 1.5%, the same across the board. We saw Wall Street futures led by Nasdaq surging 2%. Here's Owen Fairclough with more from Washington.
Essentially, that court in New York has said Donald Trump does not have the authority to unilaterally announce tariffs like that using emergency powers. It's a fairly technical and narrow definition there, but essentially Trump has been ruling by executive order, particularly when it comes to tariffs. This is Congress's role to decide tariff policy, to decide trade policy, and indeed to decide on tariffs. But we know from the way that Donald Trump, as presidency, has gone from pretty much from day one, he's been largely ruling by executive order and bypassing Congress. So there's a much wider context here to this ruling that puts essentially the authority of a US president on the line. How much power does a US president have to unilaterally direct things like tariffs and so on? What's less clear, and I should say this is likely to go to the US Supreme Court to be decided because the White House, the Trump administration, we understand, is challenging this ruling, so it's going to get tied up in courts. What isn't clear is what initial impact this will have on those tariffs. You'll remember that China and the US agreed to pare back the most stringent tariffs on each other. The two sides met for talks in Switzerland earlier this month and are preparing to resume talks as well to try and find some kind of mutually beneficial trade deal that would see those tariffs taken down at least somewhat. But we also know that major retailers here in the United States, Walmart, the biggest one, has already told its customers that it's beginning to feel the impact of those tariffs and to get ready for higher prices later on this summer. So it's hard to say at this point whether those tariffs are now on pause, how that translates to consumers who are increasingly concerned about the impact on prices, on inflation and so on. And that was one reason, that response from consumers and indeed investors in the stock market, why Trump had started to scale back those tariffs even before this court ruling.